This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
It's final hour for this week as well as for this month and for this show. It's final show on the 31st of October. And even as we do, we're going to be getting into it quite some. And from a student's point of view, what is actually happening at our universities? And are we seeing a situation that could get a lot stickier if we don't pay attention to it? But before that, I've got to ask you, what's your plan? What's your plan, folks, when you're thinking about the future, when you're thinking about the direction in which you go? Life comes in stages. Your first job, your first investment, maybe even your first child. Then one day, you're thinking about retirement and boom, the kind of legacy you want to leave behind. So wherever you are in life, ICEA Lion has a plan for you. From saving in a money market fund to securing your family's future with insurance. Because planning ahead isn't just for some, it's for everyone. ICA Lion bringing you and helping you protect, grow and plan for life's every stage. That's what we're looking at. That's what we're hoping everybody will do. To take that ICEA promise where it says you have a plan, you have something that you need to do, let's have a conversation with you and let's see how you can bring your plan to life. All right, as we get into a conversation this hour, there seems to be a rumble in the belly of the lecture halls where students are saying, we are not happy. We don't like the way things are going. And perhaps also we will say a word or two. UASU's been on strike for a month now. The payments that are being demanded by lecturers have not come through. We are told that students are in school. Others, they tell us that they're not. Remember that the year started in September. Are students back in school? What exactly is going on? And this is at the university level. But rather than for us to speculate, we will hear it from the horse's mouth, essentially. And we'll talk about what exactly is going on. Derek Troy Rosana is the president of the University of Nairobi Students Association. He's here this morning and will be joined in a short while by Remy Osoti, who is the student president of Multimedia University. But Remy is here. Remy's not here, but Derek is. Derek, good morning.
Good morning.
How are you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Fine, thank you.
Yes.
Even before we, Dennis is going to share today's proverb with you, because I already want to ask, are you in school or not? But okay, let him share the proverb. We'd love to get your interpretation of this before we start to burn things.
Yes.
So today we are in Sao Tome and Principe, right? A country that is rich in cocoa.
Yes.
Are you a lover of chocolate?
I'm a lover of chocolate.
Ah, nice.
Yeah.
So perhaps you've had a piece of Sao Tome and Principe.
Yes.
Right? But when you talk about the population, how many students do you have from your end approximately across the country?
Undergraduate, we have around 70,000. 752.
Okay.
That is just undergraduate, but the numbers could be even beyond 100,000 if you count the masters and the PhD.
Yeah, so you see, if you take that 100,000 times 3, that will be 300,000. So in 3 academic years,
Yes.
more students have passed through your institution than the entire population of Sao Tome because they are 247,000.
Yes, yes.
Eh? That's just for conversation
Yes.
sake. But now, the proverb, the big fish eats the small fish.
Yes.
How would you interpret that?
I'd interpret it as when you have a society whereby those who are usually in charge and those who are usually meant to be policymakers and meant to take care of those who are small are the ones who actually eat them. They're the ones those who are supposed to protect are the ones who are eating. That's how I interpret it.
Well,
Yeah.
let's get straight into the convo. Are you in school? Are you in class?
School, but we are not in class.
Why?
I'd speak what is happening at the Greater University of Nairobi. In fact, when you said it has been 4 weeks, it has been a month, it has not been a month. It has been 6 weeks now, especially for the University of Nairobi. Because when the strike started, it started with University of Nairobi. And the UASU guys who are at University of Nairobi chapter, they're the ones who initiated it in the country before it spread to all the other universities. So it has been 6 weeks and students are not in class. But remember, students are in their hostels. Students are also still spending their money. And you know, the Higher Education Loans Board does not care whether lecturers are on strike or not. Whatever they are dispatched to be used for this semester is what the students have been using. There are parents who have been paying rent up front because they usually calculate it depending on how the semester runs. So those rents are still running. So there are extra costs being incurred. Students are in the hostels. Right now, they wake up. What they do is they either go back to sleep, or they do is they watch something. It's basically an idle scholars at the University of Nairobi, because there is nothing meaningful that is happening. There is no education in the lecture halls. There are no online classes, because at the University of Nairobi, UASU has made it clear that learning will not take place at all. So we are in school, but we are not in class. And even those who are usually said, even those teaching staff that are usually under the UASU chapter have not been allowed to teach. So nothing is going on. Whether you are taking a diploma, whether you are taking a master's, whether you are taking a PhD, there's nothing going on at the University of Nairobi.
So when government says that, so when government said the students are in school, that's actually what they mean, that they are in school. But whether learning is happening, that's a totally different story.
Very different.
Okay, so if learning is not going on, and we're going to get into this a little bit deeper, but if learning is not taking place, teaching is not happening, why are students going to school? Maybe one day something will start. Why are students going to school?
At the University of Nairobi, we have accommodation within school.
Right.
So when the strike started, whenever we used to go to class, lecturers would actually come and chase the other lecturers away from class, and the students included. And because we respect our professors, most people usually go back to their hostels. So there is nothing that, in fact, the most idle people right now in Nairobi city are the university students, especially the University of Nairobi. You'll find them, they wake up, they go to town. You wake up, you go do something else, you go look for a side hustle somewhere. But this is not the core of what brought us to Nairobi, because we have some of us who come from very far. I personally come from Migori County. I can't come all the way from my county to Nairobi, and the expectation is that I get the basic education, which is a right. But that is not what I'm doing in Nairobi. I wake up, I sleep, I watch something, I eat. Some of them engage in what is called the horizontal activities in the hostels. So it is a mess at the university. And let me tell you, at the University of Nairobi alone, within this period of the lecturers' strike, we've lost 12 students. 12 students have died. In fact, in Faculty of Education in Kikuyu campus, we lost a student the previous week. A week did not pass. We lost the next one again.
To what though?
Mostly, they're usually attached to suicide cases. The most recent one was a murder, whereby there was a university student who was dating somebody who was older. The guy kidnapped her, demanded a certain ransom. The parents could not give it. So things happened, and unfortunately they passed, which we send our deep condolences to those families who are affected. So you find we've been grappling, and however much they are attached to mental cases, but it all starts from the lecture halls. Because if you think about it, if these students were part of a community inside the lecture hall, they have a daily program running for them, then there are some activities that they will not engage in. It keeps their mind preoccupied, and it makes them do what they want to do. The reason why mentally they are going down is because they do not see a hope in education. Because you come to school, you think, maybe I can study this and get myself out of this and this. But that is not what is happening. You come to school, you are in your room alone, you're with your thoughts alone. Sometimes you don't have something to eat. Sometimes most comrades actually have spent their help money. There is no money for help. In fact, once we are done with this lecturer strike, we are going for people from help, because they must also find a solution, because this is not the fault of the students. Whatever they are disbursed has been spent during this semester, and no learning has taken place. So they will have to find a way to recompensate our students. In fact, in some faculties, the notion is that students actually have to somersault during the day to get the food that they are taken out of their intestines back to their mouth, because that is the situation. That is what is happening at the University of Nairobi.
So money that has been dispersed, essentially, that would pay for tuition, accommodation, all of that, has been used for survival.
Yes.
Because classes have not been going on, lectures are not taking place, and even other adjunct activities are not happening.
Yes.
The UASU, a few days ago, basically put more coals on the fire and said essentially, the message was clear. Don't imagine that you will talk us down from this because you've talked before and we haven't gotten a solution. What we want is money. Put the money on the table, we go back to school even now. They are unrelenting in their position. Do you support that?
I think this is a both parties' problem, but one person weighs it more. Do you know, in a household, when there's the mother and the father, the kids, when they fight, the kids are the ones who usually suffer. So what is happening? This is even a bigger problem, and it is even a bigger mess than I think the whole country knows, because number one, SRC is involved. There is also, apart from WASU and the government and the ministry, SRC is also involved. So whatever WASU is crying for was a CBA that was signed between 2017 and 2021. And most of the people at the universities were not even there when that CBA was signed, because those majority of those at the university right now are those who joined in 2021. So they are not even part of that CBA to start with. So the argument is that, number one, it was signed during the previous government. So at times the government wanted to deny that that CBA was not signed. Then once they had agreed that that CBA was signed, it was taken to SRC. When SRC did their calculations, SRC was coming up with figures like 600 million. That is what was owed to the lecturer. So, that adds the fire to it, because WASU was done their calculation and they have 7.9 billion. You are saying it's 600 million. We are way off. So what is going on? So that is what I think prolonged the stalemate, because every time they will come to the table, they would say that we cannot discuss anything. If you are saying you owe us 600 million, but us, according to what we have, you owe us 7.9 billion. So during that stalemate, and in fact, it was discovered, I think SRC, in its own sense, came and discovered that they have the wrong figures and the lecturer's figures is right. So that is why you're seeing now the negotiation now shifted to, okay, let us pay you in shifts, so let us pay it in batches. But again, was refused, because they say that even paying that in batches would lead to another strike if you don't pay the next batch or if something happens. Let us just clear this for once and for all. And in fact, I think the lecturers have taken a really hard stand that they've even added that they have to sign again another CBA for next year again, apart from signing what they're supposed to sign. So I feel, number one, there's no goodwill from the government, because they have prioritized everything else in this country apart from our right to education, apart from basic education. We see awarding of talents, we see awarding of things in this country. We see quote-unquote empowerment programs in this country, but the government is not prioritizing university education at this time. Completely not. Because how can you negotiate for 6 weeks? Students are dying. Students don't know what to eat. There's a graduation in December. How does that affect it? And if you foresaw that this problem was something that was going to extend, why didn't you close the universities earlier?
Oh, hang on. There's a graduation in December.
Yes.
What are they graduating from?
I don't know what they're going to graduate from, because the graduation that is supposed to be December is usually for the lot that was left out in September. Maybe you had a pending unit that you're supposed to complete. So basically, you will not graduate, and maybe you're in the same cohort of this year, because all these things are connected. And you know what is very unfair is that public universities are meant for the bright but less fortunate. They don't have whatever it takes to go to private universities. So that is why government supplements. But what is happening, there are bright students at the universities. But now when we get out, all of us, to the same pool, there are unfair opportunities, because somebody in a private university is going on with their education. Okay? And when you look at even internship next year, by the time they'll be announcing internship, even for government itself, it will only be open to private students, so those who had been taking part in learning, because most of us will still be finishing our semesters. So will not be eligible. So you see, the people that you're meant to help, you are creating an unfair pool already. And WASU on its side is also very wrong at some point, because there are times when you also try and put also the people who are the greatest stakeholders also in light. Let's say, maybe agree, if even paying in 3 shifts is hard, even the 2 shifts, I try and agree on something. But it has seemed that all throughout this process, WASU also has had a very hard line that it's 7.9 billion or not. It cannot be paid in shifts, and it is not being paid in any other manner. We want it to reflect. And in fact, after we agree, it has to reflect in the accounts. That is actually their position. So I feel both parties are fighting whether who is right or wrong it is the students who are mostly
Derek,
affected.
You've painted a picture of WASU's position at the government's position, SRC speaking, correcting the mistakes with regard to the data that they have on amount that is owed to their lectures. And here we have students who, like you've said, are not in class. Government says students are actually in school. Whether they're studying or not is a different conversation. But from a point of a student, with all these things you're saying, is connected. We have graduation coming in December, and whether it will happen or not is a different conversation as well. How would you want to see this handled from a student's perspective?
I'll start from a student leader's perspective, because I remember on Monday we had a demonstration. Actually, it was not a demonstration, it was a petition. I don't think the government can handle students' demonstrations. We marched, we wrote a petition requesting the matter to be immediately resolved, and we marched all the way from University of Nairobi to Jogo House, just to try and be part and let them know that we are the ones who are hurting here, not the ones who you are not paying salaries or the ministry. We are the ones who are hurt here. We got to Jogo House, we got a chance to see the PS, but our petition was referred to the CS. So we demanded that we wanted to see the CS, not the PS. The PS left, but she left instructions, and we were beaten thoroughly. We saw bad things with police at Jogo House. That was on Monday.
So she left instructions that...
She left instructions that we were supposed to get out of that place. The how, I don't think she mentioned it, but...
At their discretion.
But the how was at their discretion. I had several of my student leaders actually beaten. Some were admitted to KNH. I had several of my people injured. It was a nasty scene, and it was tear gas in Jogo House everywhere. And it was just a group of students, just 80 or so. It was not even a demonstration, it was submission of a petition, which I think everybody in this country has a right to. But the situation was very much mishandled. So that is the direction that we took as student leadership, to try and solve the problem. But now that we've seen what this government is capable of, we've seen that it is blood-based. It is now, when you try to fight for your rights, it becomes we have to beat you so that you get back in line. So I think once they have taken that stance, we as students also, we now also have to take the hard line, because it seems like everyone is taking a hard line. So our position as the students' fraternity is that, number one, you cannot close the institutions at this time now. You cannot wait all that time. We've lost a lot of students, and now this is the time that you say, now we want to now close the institution. That is not possible. Number two, WASU and government should and must come to a consensual agreement, and all those parties must be willing to concede something so that we get back to class. That is our priority. Education is the only priority, and in fact, education is supposed to be the only light at the end of the tunnel, or the key to a good life. But the government has stolen that key. The government and WASU is stealing that key. So we do not care how they're going to do it, but when we come out, all of us, number one, there are no lecturers who are going to strike within the university. If they want to strike, let them also get out on the street. Then there is no boycotting class at graduation square. No, if you want to strike, get out on the street. Same to government. We are not having any negotiations anymore. They rejected our petition. Instead of receiving it, they tear-gassed us and chased us away. So we are not submitting petitions anymore. What we are going to do now, because government is stopping the future of young people, I think everything in this country needs to stop, because if the youth are the future, this country has no future if it has stopped.
Do you think when these conversations are going on, WASU pulling their side, the government pulling their side, you presenting your petition to have your grievances being heard, do you think at any point, even as they speak, the student is at the back of their mind? Because remember, the right to education is for the children of this country, right? Do you think at the back of the mind, we are in class, but we are affecting that student? Or is it about, I want my money, government, let us sit down and negotiate? But do they think that the longer it stays, we're disenfranchising the student?
I don't think that is on their minds.
Should it?
it should be on their no, it not should, it must be on their mind, but it is not. It should not be a question of should, because we are the biggest stakeholders. WASU teaching staff are 100. Even government employees within the ministry do not match the number of students. So we are the biggest stakeholders. How can you have a discussion about matters to do with education and you don't consider the biggest stakeholders, those receiving quality education?
The 70,000
The
students
70,000
that we're talking about.
Exactly. So it is not on their minds. I do not feel it is on their minds. I do not feel it is even in the mind of even the head of state, because this should be treated as an emergency. You have students in school, but they're not going to class.
Let's get an understanding of this, Derek. What year are you in? What year are you in now? What year are you in?
I'm in 4th year.
You're in 4th year?
Yeah.
Studying a Bachelor of
Science in Electrical and Electronics Engineering.
Which is a 5-year course at the
Yes.
University of Nairobi.
Yes.
So essentially, you would be going into 5th year in September? Or
Yes, I would start 5th year in September.
You should have started 5th year in
Yes.
September 2025.
Yes.
So you've completed your 4 years.
Yes.
You should be in your final year of your engineering
Exactly.
course. All right. So it's November now. Tomorrow is November 1st.
Yeah.
Even if they woke up on Monday morning and said, okay, guys, we've sorted this thing out, everybody go back to school and start teaching. You missed out on 2 months of learning.
Yes.
Okay. Would you catch up? And then give or take from the 10th of December, right around, just before, what's the holiday on the 10th of December? What's that national day?
It's 12th of December.
12th, this Jamhuri.
Yes.
Right. From around 12th, nothing really happens. Schools, essentially, universities will close down. And the week before is when we see that graduation that you're talking
Yes.
about that normally happens. So if we're looking at any kind of learning, we're looking at that starting in January, right? So what would happen and how would you catch up? We're living in an ideal situation now where things have been sorted out. How would we catch up these 3 months?
Yeah.
Number one, of course, the calendar will have to be reshifted.
Okay.
And I don't think students do not want a conversation of now squeezing our semester.
Yes.
Because there are some courses you cannot squeeze their semesters. They have a lot of lab work and a lot of requirements, like for me personally. So you cannot squeeze the semester. So calendars will have to be readjusted, which means this year or next year, University of Nairobi plus other public university students will have to forgo maybe internships or long holidays. Because if you readjust the semester, that means if semester 1 begins in January, we finish it in April. The second semester begins in May, you'll finish it in around August. And you're supposed to start the next semester now in September. So generally, no internship, no long holiday for us.
Is internship a requirement?
Yes.
So how on earth would you then do it if you have to forego it in your 5th year? Internship is a requirement for 5th year engineering students.
In fact, no, for 4th year. Now, those who would be in 4th year, because I did my internship.
Yeah.
Okay, so for those who would be
For
in
this,
4th year.
yeah, they'll have to forgo that internship.
But how do you forego a mandatory
Requirement.
That is what beats the question of whatever is happening here, because or otherwise the semester won't have to start in September. It will have to start again in October. So it's a realignment again, and it will take some time for us to even get back to that September, because when you'll be shifting people out or readjusting for specific faculties, so that you say now engineering starts in October, so that this month is meant for internship. So there's basically no rest for the students. They are congested semesters, and the fact that we say we have a right to quality education, I think that right is not being fulfilled, and it is not going to be quality anymore. It's going to be trying to compensate for what is happening. It is what we usually call justification. Now, when they've agreed, the lecturers have their money, they have their money. In fact, they'll be the ones who will be campaigning that now, in fact, we are even ready to teach on weekends. Who are you teaching on weekends?
Oh, they'll even say, you guys come to class on Saturday and Sunday. Let's make up for what we missed.
Remedial classes.
Yeah. My goodness. All right. I want to go back to when you had the almost meeting with PS. You went to ask for audience, at least to hear what is happening, so that maybe she could shed light on some of these issues. I don't know if I missed it, but she had nothing to say to you, or said we'll come back to you.
She had nothing to say to us.
Okay.
The biggest problem with our current government is that they failed on basic things such as communication, effective communication. Because, in fact, during and amidst all these things, if you had dropped the students on board from a long time, you'd have had solutions, or at least tried to find solution. But they don't communicate. Nothing is communicated. So when you don't communicate, of course, we'll assume you do not care. Because if you did care, you take your time to say, okay, this is what is going on, this is where we are at, and we are looking for resolutions on how to get from this point to this point. That is something as simple as that. But most communication we get from what is happening between UASU and the government is from the media.
It's not lost on us that she is the PS for higher education.
Yes.
That irony is interesting to then be able to imagine. This is not the first time that students have been out of class because of an agreement between mommy and daddy. Do you see that because of issues that were maybe sorted out before, CBAs, non-compliance and all of that, it should be, one would imagine that it gets better, that we'll say, okay, if this should happen again, that we've learned lessons from the past, and then we'll be able to apply those lessons to avoid these future conversations or these future situations. You've been in that campus maybe now more than 4 years, because that has happened before. Yes. Did you see that there's learning from the past for future situations?
There is no learning from the past, because essentially if you learn, you need to get better at how you handle situations. And instead it has gotten worse, because the last strike that was there was actually around 3 weeks. There was a certain one that was there when I was in, was it third or second year?
Okay.
One of them. There was a certain strike, lasted for around 3 weeks, but it was resolved. I think it is the same government that was still in charge when that strike was also taking place. And in fact, there are still people from previous governments who have witnessed bigger strikes. Like there was one in 2019 that actually stretched as long as this one. So you'd think that we've learned from these mistakes, and the people who are getting hurt by all this are our students. But unfortunately, they've not learned from those mistakes. They are not even saying, I don't know what the problem is. Is it that the 7.9 billion is not there for education? Is it that the country does not have this money? Even in terms of economic advisors, how do you advise a ministry, or how do you advise a state when there's an emergency such as education? Because I'm sure if other fundamentals such as health was affected in this manner, there will be crisis meetings all over. If other fundamentals such as security, there will be crisis meetings all over. And even in the budgeting that was done previously, education was seemingly given a lump sum,
Yes.
according to the ministry. So where is this money that is being talked about? And why is it that even those in parliament do not seem to talk about what is actually happening in the education sector? Even those within the ministry, they're not actively talking about it. But this is a crisis. People are not learning. People who you've brought to the university. And you know what is unfortunate is that there are some universities that learning is still taking place. What you still call, quote unquote, the Secretary General of WASU was saying secondary schools. He was calling them secondary schools in the village. They're still learning. Learning is still taking place in those institutions. But you find these big institutions, or the institutions that are more prestigious, there is no learning taking place. So why would somebody work really hard to get to these universities, then they find a situation like this? What is the point of all this? Where is the money? And why is the government not communicating? Legislators are not talking about it. Members of the Senate are not talking about it. Everybody is very quiet about it. Even some student leaders are not talking about it. So you wonder what is going on in this country, or is it what is happening? Have we gotten to a point in a country where we see education and we think that is it? Yeah, don't mind.
We talk about where the money is, and in the morning there's something we want to do in terms of how much is lost in the country with regard to the Auditor General's report and how much the country uses through graft, But even as we talk about attention not given to the education sector in the country, because you look at even the lower education sectors, and even capitation getting to schools is still a problem.
Yes, it is.
Disbursement of help is a problem.
Yes.
You know, when it comes to paying lecturers, is a problem. But I want to look at the quality of education as is, in the sense that, so you are a fifth year student, so the fourth years were supposed to go for internship, might have to forego that so that they catch up with lost time.
Yes.
But if it is an engineering student and that is demanded, one would argue that by the time you're going to look for a job, the engineering board would ask for that point of internship that you missed at the point.
Exactly.
And we look at that and look at the quality of education, and one would say this strike interfered with the quality of education, which rendered this student in the future, making their life very difficult to get a job or to even practice, because they missed an integral part of the curriculum.
Yes.
So do they understand what they're doing to the students of this country? Do they really care about the quality of education as it's enshrined in the Constitution? Or is it about, I want my pay, whatever the students go through, that's none of my business?
It's about, I want my pay, and anything else is none of my business. In fact, we usually call them masqueraders at the Ministry of Education. There's somebody masquerading as a PS, there's somebody masquerading as a CS, because they do not care. How can you be PS for higher education and that higher education is not going on? So just go home. If the docket you're studying for, there's nothing that is going on. So what is it that you're doing? They do not care, and they do not fully understand the impact of what this is doing to the students. Some of them might not have their students in public universities. Some of them might have their students, or they might have their children already, maybe they have gotten jobs, they're going on well in life. So they do not understand the full long-term effect that this has on our students. They do not understand that our futures are now at stake because we are bargaining for education. I did not imagine that there was a point in this country whereby we had a president who treated education like the biggest priority. But now we are at a point in this time whereby we have a president who does not care about higher education, in all honesty. Because there are times when somebody would say that, okay, even some parts of education would be free. But now we have gotten to a point where students have to bargain for education. We have to say, okay, when are we coming back to class? When are we coming back to school? When are we doing this? And the government, in its own sense, is also even killing public universities, because you find situations whereby they lower the fee. That lowers public anger. That is granted. They have lowered the fee. But even their lowered fees, the government still has arrears in capitation for the universities. So universities can't even stand on their own. That's why you see most public universities have challenges. Most of them are collapsing. Those that are still afloat, they are afloat because they have assets in terms of land that maybe they can tap from through the right processes. But those universities are dying slowly. I'm thinking of a situation where in future we have a country whereby we have only maybe 7 fully running public universities. That is as sad as it is right now. Capitation is not granted by the government. For them, when the university requests for capitation, they say, okay, you tap into your research, the government has no money, that goes. When they start a new year, they say, now we are starting again afresh. All this capitation for this one, maybe we forgo it, they start again. So how are public universities supposed to run? And what is the future of education in our country?
When you think about that, and I most times when things happen, and you talk about it being a crisis situation, and when things happen in this manner, we actually don't see the connection between the now situation and the possible detriment that it has in the future. Now, when we look at conversations that are being had from a government level in terms of a policy direction that the country will be taking, the aspiration is first world. That's the aspiration, Eric, for the country is first world. We also know that there are some countries who've clawed their way out of regressional development because of certain things that they did. One of those things was to align education from a primary level all the way to university, and to align that with the career world. Because they said if we have children, then to teenagers, and then into adults studying in a certain direction with a certain element of excellence, it is going to guarantee that from a policy level for government, we will then be able to achieve economic development. We miss that connection a lot. With the way things are going, can we make those parallels in Kenya between this and what the aspirations for the future towards a first world actually are?
I don't think we can. Is there hope? Maybe there is hope if we get a government that prioritizes education, because currently this one does not feel like it wants to prioritize education. And you know, the beauty with education is that whenever you educate somebody in a society, they are now capable of solving problems within their own country. But if we are saying we are targeting, and 2030 is coming near, and the worst part is that the vision 2030 and what Kenya was supposed to look like in 2030, I'm sure the person who drafted that vision will be ashamed of us right now, because he'd be looking at it and saying, okay, let's check where the basics are at. Education, where is education at? He's told 2 public universities have closed down, 3 are struggling with debt crisis. Students have not learned for 6 months in this university. Okay, health, where are we at with the health? There's this and this that went missing on this and this day. There's these hospitals that have never been facilitated. There's this and this. Okay, where are we at with this? This money got lost. So they'd be ashamed, because they'd be looking at it. They drafted a perfect vision, but the people who are charged with forwarding that vision or ensuring that that vision is achieved went into empowerment at a grassroots level, went into the quote-unquote empowerment at youth level, which is usually, we can't lie, those are disguised campaigns. They are campaigning, and normally it is done in cash. They went out and used money to do all other irrelevant things, but not prioritize the most relevant things. They handled all situations but the essential situations. It is a busybody government. They are doing things here and there, but the most important things, the things that touch the future of our society, they're not doing them, because they want us to struggle and keep on begging them, because that is what gives them power. The fact that we keep on begging them for these things. So they will handle everything else. They will handle issuance of IDs and waive their fees. They will handle access to e-citizen. They will handle access to how payments should go through e-citizen. They will argue about e-procurement, how they should do procurement through a digital system, and they will be very vocal about it. But when it comes to education, everybody is silent. There is not a single gathering that I've had the head of state or his deputy or anyone talking about university education. You know how sad that is. But you remember when they were struggling to change from NHIF to SHA or SHA, whatever they were using, it was very vocal. Everybody used to talk about it. Even the president himself used to talk about it, because that is something they wanted. So this government, if they want to do something, they will do it. But if they're not giving something a priority, they will also make it clear that they're not giving it a priority. Because right now, you see, even those small students who want to speak about lecturers' strike, they're usually shut down. They're usually told, you can't speak about this, you can't do this, you can't do this. Or if you refuse, they go the brutal way, or they use force. So we cannot talk about a future first world country if education is in shutters. Most countries that are struggling right now, it all started with this, education. The system collapsed in terms of education. The universities collapsed in terms of education. And before we know it, we have a country whereby instead of people going to universities, people are picking up weapons to fight for resources. Instead of people going to universities to make solutions on how to get more resources, people are picking up weapons to struggle and fight for the few scarce resources remaining. That is where we are heading as a country realistically. Unless we sit down, all of us, and we change from all the way top. If I was the president, why would you not prioritize education? Because I feel if you prioritize education and even let's say you didn't perform better in all those other things, the society will remember you in a good way. But you will now be remembered for so and so was a minister, and during his time, we were not in school for 6 months. So and so was a PS, and during her time, we were not in school for this and this period, and they did nothing about it, or they were too slow to do something about it, which in turn affected our futures ahead.
And that's what you will remember.
Yes, that is what we'll remember. That is what we'll remember. That is what I will keep saying. During my time, you know, the old folks have very interesting stories. During my time, I studied for free. During my time, I was given food for free in school. During my time, I used to pay this little money in school. But the stories that this generation will be telling of school, during my time, I had to beg government so that we are given basic education. During my time, I had to tarmac more for a job because members of WASU decided they are not teaching, which affected my semesters, and thus I am ineligible for any job. So I have to go back and do an internship. During my time, we only have bad memories of this government. During my time, university education was expensive. During my time, I had to struggle to get food at the university because the country's economy was not doing well. We'll only have bad stories. And if we have bad stories, how are you building people who can make this country?
Are we destroying the future of this country? Just based off what it is you've said. Because I look at it in terms of what we've just canvassed, changing the country towards the future first world country, and how we would have to start by fixing the education sector. You know, we have a beautiful vision 2030. We're like 5 years towards that, and even that, with regard to its implementation, is subject for conversation. But you look at the education in the country and how it is from the ground going up, it is all in shambles. And one would ask, who exactly are we bringing into the market? Because there's a conversation that is always asked, why is it that UN Towers was built by the Chinese and not the students? And one would argue, because students lacked, internship, they're not eligible to perform such tasks. But we forget what we did to these students for them not to be trusted in the market.
Exactly.
You know? And when you just sit back and look at a government and its people, and one would say, we just don't care. But that aside, let's talk solutions. How do we fix this entire mess such that, I know perhaps maybe you don't have those questions, but involvement of students during these strikes, let's sit down together as stakeholders, the biggest stakeholders in this entire matter, so that students do not miss their time, so that lecturers are paid on time, so that help is disbursed on time. Because I remember my brother was in school for almost 6 years for a course of 4 years. And that was because of every time there is a strike, every time there's a strike. But remember, because he was living off campus, if you've paid rent, the landlord will not care. You'll have to pay that rent again. Because this kid was in school and there is food, once you've eaten that food, even if you're saying somersault, it will not come back.
Yes.
Parents have to again spend extra money to make sure that their children go through an education system. So how do we just fix all this with everyone sitting at the table?
The solution, number one, is that government has to start paying its capitation to public universities. That is the biggest priority, because that will change and shape the course of even quality of education. Because the moment government does not pay its capitation, the resources that the university gets in terms of grants for research, they do not go into research, they go into supporting the university. So we'll have a university whereby if government does its part, then the universities can sustain themselves, so that whatever extra that is coming, they use it to improve the quality of our education. That is number one. Number two, for lecturers, for WASU, and for all these organizations, arrears should be cleared so that we start on a clean slate. Let us stop signing CBAs left, right, and center. Everywhere CBAs are signed, everywhere is return to work formulas are signed. Let us have a system whereby we are focusing. Let us focus on clearing debts for staff that are in critical sectors. That includes education, that includes medics, that includes staff that are in those critical points within the country that hold our country together. We should focus on clearing the arrears. not focus on signing CBAs that are going to be implemented in future. Those things should be cleared right now, so that if a government is coming in, they don't come in with a burden from a previous government. They come in, but they start on a newsletter, they have been being paid. So my responsibility during my time is just to continue paying them. My responsibility is not to fulfill money that I was not aware was signed when I was not in power, or money that I cannot trace where it went to after it was released. So that should be the solution. And whenever there are industrial actions involving the lecturers, I think